now in New York like a few months ago, and one of the things that came out there were, the 5 boroughs. Manhattan obviously is like the most expensive one. And what was interesting is there was a high level of skepticism on the idea that the Waymos or the Zooks or Teslas, whatever it is, were really going to spend their time in the excerpts, that they were going to spend their time in the Bronx trying to bring people in, and more so, that it was more of a pipe dream than a reality, because the cost per mile is much higher in the dense urban areas where you need to get where you want to go, and short trips also drive more profit. So there's a lot to think about there. I mean, I think it would be incredible if last mile was really last mile to transportation was something that was factored for, but I think that there's a lot to think about there. Andrew's thoughts?
Because he doesn't have a mic.
Interesting points. I think a world where the private sector and public sector collaborate to try to solve this problem sounds great. Ultimately, consumers are going to choose based on some combination of price and convenience. And so I think a world where consumers have a menu of options to meet different use cases is a good one. So hopefully we can achieve that future.
And that'll be a world in which congestion stops all motion in cities and damages urban economies, as well as quality of life and equity.
I want to get back to Neha, just this is sort of adjacent to charging, but one thing that I've written about, but I wrote a piece about Waymos are picking up parking spots. And I guess this is known, but I thought it was kind of interesting. It could increasingly be an issue. What do you see for the future of that? This issue of parking.
No, I do not control the algorithm, so I can answer that. But from what we provide our customers and AV customers, we're always looking for ways to help them improve their operations. And so, a component of parking with charging is something that is almost always included in our sites. And so we think about that. We've tried to find ways to make that cost effective for them. A lot of our sites are in dense urban areas, and that can be expensive. But we're always thinking about how can we help them through that. We think about, how do we help them turn vehicles faster so they can get back on the road? They're not out there waiting for charging. So from our perspective, it's, can be partially solved with the right infrastructure. And, that's our role in that piece of it.
Other thoughts on, what's the future of parking we have?
The future of parking is an interesting one. I think the reality is that there are a host of operational challenges that are new and inherent to AVs, and operational challenges like that are just really hard to solve a priori. I think you can have a vision of what you want the outcome to be, but there is just a lot of trial and error. And I tend to give most folks like Waymo the benefit of the doubt in terms of positive intent of not wanting to disrupt communities, whether because of congestion or noise associated with these things. Again, I think there are going to be hiccups and growing pains, but hopefully over the long term, consumers will also vocalize that frustration, and that'll help sort the market out in terms of these companies not having negative impact on communities.
So I'm actually going to offer a positive view here. So one of the great things about autonomous vehicles is they eliminate parking demand in high-value downtown destinations, right? They don't need to park. They can take you where you want to go, and they can take off and go someplace else without needing a parking space in your downtown or your neighborhood commercial district. I'm also fine with them parking in neighborhood parking spaces. They have every right to the curb that anyone else does. And I'd rather have them parked than just driving around in circles empty, congesting up the city streets. But there's also this extraordinary opportunity, and one of the reasons why I love the Curbivore team is they point out a current regulatory failure, which is our inability to manage the curb for the highest public good, and to get autonomous vehicle companies to be able to partner with cities in order to direct them to the most efficient place to do pickup and drop off, as well as the most efficient or least impactful place to store the vehicle while it's waiting for its next trip. This is an extraordinary opportunity for technology partnership, as well as rethinking our rogue and regulatory approach that harms both industry and cities here in California.
Do you want to weigh in, Chapin?
I would just say, I mean, this is true today, right? I live in Lafayette. So do I take the BART, like bike to the BART, do I take the BART, do I take a Lyft? How do I, and the calculation you're making is not just am I going to drive and pay what my car's electric, but do I drive and deal with that? I know where I'm going to have to pay to park, and you do the calculation, right? And then this is going to be connected to the price, right? So as the price goes down and people can do that calculation, the other calculation is not only is it more convenient to take that ride and not have to worry about how to park or where to get the parking spot, as if it becomes cheaper. And then, all the things we could do if we didn't have all the parking lots down now. I mean, I know that's utopian, whatever, but like, you could really do some amazing city planning if you could, you're not going to eliminate it all. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you could do some of the smart city planning with less parking, we'd live more beautiful cities.
One more question, then I want to do like a very, very quick full panel lightning, if that's okay, if we have time. I don't see Jonah. Okay, I'll just say, Harry says yes. Harry says you're all still here. Awesome. Okay, what do we know about who's riding AVs? Are they all rich? Are more women riding them, in them? Is it all unaccompanied minors? Is it all, as the New York Post says, elite moms? Who's riding?
No, they're definitely not. I would say that what we're seeing is that there's been a huge adoption. In our sentiment surveys that we've done, and we've surveyed people basically last year, we've surveyed people in Phoenix, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. This year, we did Austin, Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Sentiments increased a lot. One is that women are slower to adopt AVs. I think it's been the most surprising thing because, the assumption had been, I feel safer in a car without a driver. That's not been the case. Women actually are slow to adopt. They're slower to trust the AVs. They're slower to, kind of have the idea. Like I think you can see in our survey, but like 63% of men said they're willing to put their child in the car and let it drive away. Not the case with women, but we are seeing it's true. It's like amazing. I gave a speech here 2 weeks ago, and a few women came up to me afterwards and said they were too scared to take away. And they live in San Francisco. So the adoption curve on gender is huge. It's still there. Users above 60, very slow to adopt as well. And also very interestingly, deeply concerned about the economic impact on drivers and on the economy overall. Users in California, deeply, deeply concerned that they're being filmed in the car and what is going to be done with that data set. But overall, and that's young users as well. But overall, like what we're seeing is a lot of enthusiasm to get to that first ride. And now, compared to what it was about 7 months ago, 50% of people who have taken an AV now believe that it will be safer than a human driver in 5 years. The irony is that it is safer than a human driver now. But, its perception is not always reality.
I would put my 7-year-old into the car. Totally. Just like that's good.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
No, but we tell our pilot in Atlanta that we have going. It's pretty similar. We see a pretty similar cohort of people riding that would ride in traditional rideshare, right? It's urban. It doesn't skew. It skews younger. There is the use cases you hear of unaccompanied minors, but I think generally it looks pretty similar, at least in our case, to folks who are looking for a rideshare ways to get around. Depends on where it exists, and each city's a little bit different, but it's generally the same.
Good answers, nothing to add.
All right, should we do our lightning round? I want to ask the whole panel in as few words as possible. Biggest challenges in the future. Gosh, I don't know this question. But okay, let's start with this. Biggest challenges in the next 10 years for Robodexes. Go.
Operational scaling.
Payback.
My word count, or can I
No. Explain what that means for me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built, a lot of process that needs to be built, a lot of capital that needs to come in and help finance these assets. The technology problem, I think, has a fairly clear glide path for most of us. The cost curve on the hardware side is coming down fairly well. I feel quite bullish on the overall safety picture, and it's really just a matter of figuring out the operational and capital scaling behind it. These are expensive assets, and they take up a lot of space.
I think similar in the sense I was going to say profitability. Like, you know, how do you actually turn a profit doing this?
We need a regulatory structure that rapidly advances American innovation and tech leadership, that promotes competition in the marketplace, that promotes public trust, and at the same time upholds the public good. And our current regulatory structures point us in the opposite direction on all four points.
It's weird because I actually think each piece is equally important. If you had to say what's the top one, I would say cost. I just think you're going to get, as the cost goes down with all the different functions, then you can get the cost per mile down and you get more adoption, it's going to scale.
Is it scaling the infrastructure fast enough? We're seeing that the rate that companies are able to train and enter new geographies is just decreasing really, geometrically here. And so building that infrastructure in that time frame is starting to get tough. So we're going to be very busy building enough capacity for these EVs.
Harry, do I have time for one more?
Quick one.
Quick one. Okay,
Last
make this
question.
quick. When, if ever, will it make sense for me to ride a robotaxi to Tahoe?
Auto alert.
Never is never the answer.
Sometime next decade.
It's hard to drive in the snow now, so I don't know.
I'd say, yeah, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I would say years.
It's a great goal. It's going to be sweet. I can't wait to take the road trip. We put the kids in, play cards, and you just go, and it's going to be great. 5 to 6 years.
There's a great image of that from Popular Mechanics in 1954.
For anyone who sat in traffic to Tahoe, not soon enough.
Thank you all.